Hello, my name is Alan McCabe. I'm with the River Blackwater Catchment Trust. Um, we're one of 17 rivers trusts in Ireland. It's a building community, so it is. We've established in 2013, so we're probably one of the more mature river trusts in Ireland at the moment. We've had a really good start in 2013, 14, 15, and then like a lot of organizations, we started to dip a little bit. But recently now with involvement with catchment care, we're back up stronger than ever and even better than we were even in the beginning. So it's been a good partnership so far. We were lucky in the beginning of our project to have a good set of articles of association. Our objectives were primary water quality, but we had a wide remit for flora and fauna in the catchment, which has been very useful in the current climate crisis changes that have come along, and it means we can work in a broader scope. We're a cross-border organization, which is, is not common for the other rivers trust. We work in the Tyrone, Armagh and Monaghan area, which throws up some extra work for us because we're a registered charity in Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. So this means we're dealing with two jurisdictions and we have double the paperwork. We have different charities, regulators, authorities to deal with. We have double reporting to do and different funding resources, that kind of thing. So it just makes life a little more complicated. But we found once we got a lot of this in place to manage it, it was a lot easier in later years. So we've got control of it. We like to see ourselves as an umbrella group. And that means we're representing many other organizations and individuals. Like our membership is made up of individual members. We have different types of clubs, walking clubs, fishing clubs. We have many community groups that have an interest in the area or have an interest in biodiversity. We have community development groups, who are trying to put new infrastructure into the area, looking at areas like tourism. And then we have some businesses as well that are starting to get very interested in the work we're doing and are interested to come on board and hopefully give some funding as well. We're made up of basically all volunteers. We have no paid members of staff or any premises or anything like that. So it can be difficult sometimes, to get the funding and keep things progressing and moving and expanding. So it's difficult, but we would like to think in our next phase, medium, long term, that we go for maybe some part-time or full-time employees, that we can really push the work forward, because a lot of our time is being, spare time is being used up, doing work for the trust, and it's not really sustainable going forward. So it's not. We're quite proud in the fact that 100% of our funding goes into projects. As I said, we don't have any wages, or we don't have any property or offices to rent or anything like that. So it's a good story to go out to our funders, and they can see that their money is really getting where it needs to go. And legacy, which is a very important issue in projects like catchment care. These projects, it's great the work they're doing, and it's important the work they're doing, but if there's no legacy, if there isn't some group, organization, body to take over when this work is done, frankly, you could call the project maybe even a failure in that aspect. So it's really good. We've really liked the way catchment care has approached the legacy, and they're supporting, the trust and other organizations and groups, to get a good foundation, training, and be well positioned, to take over the work that catchment care has done in the catchment, post project. And then another very important element is stakeholder engagement. I've seen other projects fail on this, where they don't, engage the community and all the other stakeholders from day one. It's something we've been very lucky with Catchment Care. They consulted us from day one. We've been sitting on some of their steering groups, on some of their board or some of their meetings, and they're helping us promote the work we're doing in the area and make sure that other stakeholders that we weren't aware of, that they're coming on board with the trust and going to work together in the future. So the River Blackwater catchment, it's a large area, as you can see. We've got nearly 1,500 kilometres, square kilometres in the catchment. As I said before, it's Armagh, Tyrone and Monaghan, North Monaghan. The area was drained in the 1980s under, it was part of sort of a network drainage, for basically for farming. And the problem with a lot of that work back then, it was seen as good work. It was reclaiming some land and keeping, farming land in workable condition. But the problem is, there was no or very little rehabilitation work done after that. The drainage was done, and the banks of the river and the hydromorphology of the river, if you want to use that big word, was lost, and nothing really happened in the meantime. So it's meant that there's a big task there, to get the catchment back into some reasonable condition. And it's the other thing about, the catchment being so big and diverse is that, we have many agencies, that the trust needs to work with. We have, on the southern side, we have Inland Fisheries Ireland, we have the OPW, we have the NPA, and then on the northern side, we have the Rivers Agency and the Department of Infrastructure. So both sides as well, we have different regulations and rules, and there's different Brexit has an effect as well, and funding opportunities are different on each side. So it means it's a slightly more difficult catchment to work in because of, the diversity and the border as well in the middle. The catchment's biggest problem would be, or biggest pressure would be agriculture. It's a big dairy, beef, sheep, poultry region. There's a lot of inputs, feeds, whatever coming into the catchment, and there's a lot of products going out of the catchment. So it's an important area for us to work with the farmers, processors, landowners in the region. And it's something we've been doing with Catchment Care, building that relationship and that synergy, and coming up with plans and mitigation with the landowners and farmers in the catchment. So it's a big area of work. So we're going to look at one specific a river in the catchment that we've been doing quite a bit of work on recently. We've many areas that we're working in, but maybe it's better just to focus on one river where there's quite a bit of activity at the moment. So in the last couple of years, we've been preparing projects, and it's been taking probably 2-3 years to get them to fruition. And it's something that we've learned that, you just have to take your time with these projects. So the mountain water, it flows out of Slieve Bay, and it flows down through the catchment, through Emmy Vale, down towards Glaslaw into the main Blackwater at Tynan. So in 2020, we've had quite a few projects in the area, and focusing on the river. We've had the Phase 2 environmental education program that Catchment Care got us to deliver. We have our own team of trainers and education specialists. So This was rolled out over 14 schools, and they came up with, a suite of training material and classes and site visits. And the phase 1 was very, very successful. The phase 2, we were going to expand it from 8 schools to 14 schools, but unfortunately with COVID, we couldn't actually go to the schools, so we had to go for plan B, as many other organizations had to do. And we went for a water quality education videos, which we've produced 5. They're up on YouTube, I think, and they've also been very successful, and something now that we can roll out to many other schools in the catchment because they're quite generic. There's been, in 2020 now, there's been a lot of catchment care CIS, community incentive programs in the area, and the RBCT was awarded 2 projects which are currently being rolled out at the moment. One on the main Blackwater, and one is another water quality project. Also in the area, we had the Farming for Water Quality project in association with catchment care. This is delivered to 35 farmers in the catchment to basically get them to use less weed killers. It was to use weed licking machinery, show them best practice and how to make sure that there's no problems with runoff of weed killers into water bodies, and to make sure they're familiar with all the rules and regulations with that. And we were also awarded a LawPro grant. That's the local action water program, with a grant for control of invasive species in this catchment as well, which we'll look at later, that we're going to implement this year. So in parallel, we were decided that we would do some works along the mountain water, some riparian work. So we applied to the local leader body for grants, and we received a leader grant for works in the mountain water. And with some funding we also got from LawPro, some co-funding, we've actually turned it into a project which is currently being rolled out as we speak. So it was a lot of work to get it to that point and a lot of effort, but we've learned the process and we should be able to repeat it much more easily again. During 2020, we also, as I said, we've expanded our remit, and we've got involved with removing self-seeding conifers on Sleeve Bay. This is the source of the mountain water, this river we're looking at here in particular. And by removing the self-seeding conifers, this helps the hydrology of the bog, how the bog works, how it retains water, and which of course is an important knock-on effect downstream for the river. And it also helps the ground nesting birds as well, because predators use these trees, and the ground nesting birds don't like when they're in these areas with the trees. Something new last year as well, we've been looking at conservation grazing. You're probably saying, what's this got to do with water quality? But it's important to the mountain that we control the vegetation up there, in the most natural possible way, because it's mainly a fire threat. If we get a major fire event on the mountain, and then of course, we have heavy rains, whatever afterwards, that's going to wash a lot of sediment, and it's going to cause problems for this river and other rivers, downline. And then some areas of the mountain might lose its cover, and then we're going to have even more sediment of the bog washing down it. So we've entered into a project with some local farmers on the mountain. We have 3 or 4 currently grazing it for conservation grazing, and we're using some interesting new technology at the moment that we're not allowed to put any permanent fencing on the mountain because of the status of the mountain. So we're using this virtual fencing collars on the cattle to do the same job, and it's turned out to be very interesting and very successful. So just on the mountain, you can see the pressures up there at the moment. The the drainage on the blanket bog up there, you can see this is a drain, for example, that's been opened up in the last couple of years. We're not sure who done it, but it's flowing constantly. And this actually little stream here runs quite close and into one of the sources of the mountain Blackwater. So in a storm event or heavy rain event, this gets heavily contaminated with peat, and it's one of the problem areas that we're looking at. You can also see there in the background, we have a lot of forestry in this area, and it's some of it's first cycle, some of it's second cycle, but it's the first time, in that we've had to really consider what's happening up there, and it's something that we're going to have to look at mitigation measures with the forest owners, NIF, forestry, culture, and there's private land, forest owners as well. So we need to consult with them and make sure going into the future that there's no problems coming from the forestry also. So going now into 2021, this is probably an exciting year for us, that we're really getting actions and getting projects going on the river. A project that's currently ongoing at the moment is that we're creating a riparian buffer zone along about 2.4 k's of the mountain water. This is upstream of Emmy Vale. This area is a PAA, a priority action area, because upstream the Q levels is 5 and 4.5, which is high status. And in Ireland, I think we have 520 or 30 registered rivers, and out of that, currently only 20 are high status. And I think in County Monaghan, Cavan, Meath and Louth, it's the only Q5 river. So the work we're doing, probably some people might look at it and say, well, why are you doing that? The river's fine, but that's exactly why we're doing it. We want to keep the river pristine and in prime condition. And this work we're doing in collaboration with LawPro and Leader, but Catchment Care is also now rowing in and sort of covering the little areas and places where we've run out of funding and we can't complete all the work we'd like to do. And it's become a great partnership between all the different groups and bodies, and we're all working really well together and sharing experiences and knowledge and getting all their stakeholders involved as well. And then to complement that, downstream of Emmy Vale, the Catchment Care project is going to do roughly 6 kilometers of the river. And we'll see later on in some maps, this is a much more intensely farmed area, and there's much less riparian buffer zone. So there's a higher cost, more work to do. So we decided this would be a much better area for Catchment Care to come in and do basically the heavy lifting in this area. We applied to the Catchment Care CIS funding last year for a project to do a community domestic wastewater treatment system education and desludging initiative. That's a big sentence, but basically we're going to go around, the septic tanks of one-off housing. They'll be inspected to see how well they're working, and we'll get them desludged, and hopefully, if there's work that needs to be done, we'll get the owners of them, aware that they need to get some work done on them and improve the outputs from these systems. As I mentioned earlier, we've done some self-seeding conifer removal on the mountain, and it was very successful. So now we're going for phase 2 this year. It's a project between LawPro, the Department of Culture and Heritage, and Gaeltacht this time, and Culture, because it'll be on some of their lands as well. And it's another good project. It's it's good. A lot of the people visiting the mountain have noticed this work and can appreciate this work now. And hopefully this phase 2 will get us into a position that we just need to maintain the self-seeding conifers, that we can get our volunteers to simply pull what's left, because they're going to be small, easily treatable conifers on the mountain after this phase 2. And As I mentioned earlier, we had the Water for Quality project in this catchment in this area, and where we were working with farmers on the use of weed killers or MCPAs especially, and the phase 2 is going to be a larger project, and we're going to focus on areas maybe closer to the mountain water, or that's, as I said, this year we're focusing on the mountain water, and we want to see how all these projects, when they're all interlinked together, how the water quality improves with so many factors at work, that we hope to see a big improvement in water quality this year on this catchment. So just to look at the problems we're dealing with, for instance, here on the left-hand side, we have an example of the work or the problems that we have on the mountain, on the mountain water. You can see here the farmer is letting cattle straight into the stream for drinking water, and there's poaching off the ground there, so there's sediment getting into it. The cattle are dunging in it as well. So it's a very simple fix here. We've spoken to the farmer as part of one of these projects that we would fence it off for them, that we'd fix the bank there. We'll do some repairing and planting in it. And then equally as important, we're going to put in some drinkers to give cattle access to water somewhere else. And we're looking at different solutions, different areas, different problems. So we're looking at ram pumps, solar pumps, pasture pumps, and the good old group water scheme connection. So we have a variety of solutions to these problems. And then here on this side, you can see a farmer quite close to the picture on the left, that he put in a cattle drinker and a pole, and he described to us that, listen, I have a solution here, it's working quite well, I don't think you really need to do anything here. But in a time of flood or even high water, we've noticed that this area here, there's a drain that runs down the field, and it was basically washing all the sediment and cattle dung anyway into the river. So we brought this to the farmer's attention, and yeah, he said, you're right, that's not a good idea. So he's going to let us fence it off and put some drinkers in as well. So simple win-win. So in 2021, we have had a really good news story with the Titavnik Group Water Scheme, very close to where we've been doing all of these works. In North Monaghan, the Group Water Scheme have bought an old school at Knocknagrave, and they're going to convert it into an education centre, for environment, water quality. And it turns out that it's probably half a kilometre away from where we're doing these works on the mountain water. So it's very exciting for us, and we can see great synergies and partnerships there, and we're looking forward to working with the Group Water Scheme in this area, and a lot of collaboration, and we'll be able to bring farmer groups, schools, any organisation that's interested in looking at the river. Then we can go up to the school, to the training centre, give them some slides, information, lectures, whatever, and it's a very exciting partnership. Another project that's coming up through the CIS with Catchment Care is we're going to train 20 volunteers in the catchment, and this will be also in the Arney and the Finn region as well. We started out with sort of 4 different elements of the course. These have been rolled out before previously with other projects and very successful. But unfortunately, it involves, being on site being with other people, and with COVID, that's become a problem. So we've had to go online with this, and we've decided maybe to create maybe more bespoke training here, which we're currently developing, and hopefully we'll be able to, later on in the summer roll out. But important to get all our stakeholders, volunteers trained up and be able to take over the work. The RBC, the Trust also, we put in an application for water quality measurement equipment. This is something that's really important for everybody, including catchment care, along these project areas, is that we measure the water quality. We're going to look at the phosphates, nitrates, ammonia, and we're also going to look at MCPAs and maybe glyphosate as well, to see what the levels are. And we have a Emilock downstream of the mountain water, which is a water source for a group water scheme. And last year, I think they had 8 or 9 incidents of MCPA levels rising high. So the group water scheme, catchment care, the Rivers Trust, the EPA, all the different organizations are very, very interested in finding out where this source is coming from, and to take actions to make sure that doesn't happen again. So water quality measurement is very important, and it's something important for the future, for legacy, and it's something that the Trust, that's ideal work for our volunteers to be doing. So we're going to kit them out with the gear to do this. We're going to have some, some simple gear for doing kick samples and vertebrate samples, but then we're going to have some more interesting handheld probes and more sophisticated systems as well that we can use this. There's quite a few community incentive schemes in our catchment as well this year. I think we have another 8 or 10 projects coming up. And the reason I'm mentioning this is a great opportunity for the Trust to meet other community groups in the catchment. Sometimes it's difficult to get out there and find other groups with the same interests as we have, or the same goals as we have. And through the CAS scheme, we found a lot of synergies, a lot of other interested groups, and they maybe didn't know that the Trust existed or was present in their region, and we're getting some great link ups there. So that's another positive. And just in the last 2 weeks, or the last week actually, LawPro, the local areas water program, has awarded us a grant to do another 2-3 kilometers of the mountain water. And we've keep these projects sort of shovel ready a year or two in advance, and this has proved a good way to work, and we're excited we can continue the work on this stretch of the river. So just pictures maybe show a good story here. This is upstream of the mountain water. We can see here, this is Emmy Vale here. We can see the green here, which shows high status of the mountain water upstream towards Slieve Bay on the left-hand side. And I'm not sure if you can see it in this picture, but you can see there's a lot of native woodlands. The riparian planting is excellent along all of these rivers. There's only a few kilometers that we need to reinforce that planting, or need to maybe replace some of that planting because it's maybe cut away. But you can see the farming, the intensity of farming along this stretch of the rivers, it's much lower. Stocking rates are lower, and of course quality increases because of that. But then when we go downstream here, where we start just above Emilock, we can see that the color goes to orange, and the river starts to come under pressure here. We've got higher stocking rates, farming intensity goes up. We have dairy farmers, much more intensity of dairy farmers here. We have urban areas. We have wastewater treatment plant as well in the area. And as you can see here, the buffer zones, the riparian planting, native woodlands are basically gone. So this is an area where catchment care have come in. They're going to do a lot of work in this area, fencing off, creating buffer zones, planting native riparian areas is here. And if there's any in-stream work as well, that they'll take this on. Whereas on the top picture, the Rivers Trust, we're going to be working mostly in this area because it's more protecting what's there, and from cost and probably complexity point of view, it's much easier for us to take that area of the mountain. But it's a good partnership, and when we do our water quality sampling and tests later on, we should hopefully have good results to show. So just to show something recently to come up that, you know, that's could be of great use to other organizations and projects is just how we're doing our desktop project scoping at the moment. This is a new tool that the catchments.ie with EPA have developed, a new online tool where you can go into a specific area in your catchment and you can switch on different parameters. And for instance, in this picture here, I've switched on the phosphorus delivery paths and delivery points. Now, this is the area that we've looked in the last slide of the mountain water close to Emyvale village. And you can see straight away here that we can see the flow paths for phosphorus of the local fields and lands into the river, and the delivery points. So these are areas that when we build our riparian buffer zones and do our native planting and, you know, our mitigation points, you know, this is where we really need to look at and focus at. And it's an excellent tool, you know, to prepare a lot of this on desktop on your computer before you go out to site and have a good idea where the works are needed and what needs to be done. It's a very useful tool. You'll see the link to it there. It's very intuitive, very easy to use, so highly recommended. And finally here, I don't think we can ask any questions, but you can contact me. I think contact details are here. There, you can email me at the River Blackwater Catchment Trust about anything we're doing at the moment. I'll leave the last picture here. This is the weir in Emyvale, a contentious issue for us, so it is. It's caused us a lot of problems down the line. We're working with a lot of different groups and bodies and agencies to get something done on it. It's a major fish pass blockage, so it's not functioning. For the weir in it there doesn't function properly at all, and it's something that we need to deal with in the future. But anyway, thank you for your attention, and as I said, you can contact me at the River Blackwater Catchment Trust@gmail.com. Thanks.